Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you can hear me. So, last time in our first session, we had reviewed Python fundamental. There are two reasons why we had reviewed last time. One is we are going to have some sessions on machine learning, and for that, we need the basics of Python programming. So today also I'm going to continue with one of the libraries, Pandas library. I'm going to discuss so that you have plenty of time to master Pandas data frames once we begin machine learning part. So today we are going to start with Pandas and then we will switch to some database concepts from next week onwards, basically two more sessions on databases, and then we'll back to machine learning. Now, having said that, my today's session mainly focus on Pandas data frames. And under this, let's start. Right. Now, I hope you remember NumPy library that we have discussed last time. Now, NumPy library is good for handling, data. But then for more high-level data structure and manipulations, usually we prefer to have them pandas. So although we use pandas, we also use NumPy as well. It goes hand by hand. So therefore, we'll start with first import pandas as PD, that is the short name for that. At the same time, we will also use NumPy as input. So this is the first thing that we are going to discuss today. Right. Now, saying that, then the next idea that we are going to discuss is how to create sessions. So under that, I'm going to discuss use of pandas. So with this, I'm going to look at how we can actually create what we call series and data frames. So that is under creation of pandas data frames. So there are two things: you can create series, that one-dimensional, then two-dimensional data we usually call data frames. So let's create series and data frames in pandas. Right. Now, having said that, creating data frames and pandas, the first look at let's create a series. Now, when we say creating a series, usually you will have a one dimension, right? So usually when we create series, the index usually numeric, right? So let me say, first start with series. Okay, how to create, let's say series as one. I'm going to use pandas series method. So that's the method we have to use. And as a list, we can comma separate the values we want to have. Let's say I have four values, 1, 2, and 4, 5, which we will create a pandas series. Now, if you do this, and let's print it. And if you run it, you will get something like this. right? So that's the first part that we are going to discuss. Use pandas and use series method for one-dimensional array of data. Now, like what we did in NumPy, here also you can use, shape. So for example, if you want to look at like shape of this, so simply we can say S1 is our series, and then if you say shape, that will give you the shape of the series. That is, we have basically 4 columns, right? That's what we have. Then similar to that, let's look at the index values. So if you need like index values, so similar to that, we can say S1 dot index, which we will tell us, okay, so index start with 0 to 4. That means 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And step is also given, right? Now that we have choose this, and remember, this is numerical index originally, right? Okay, let's move to the next one. Now, second thing I would like to discuss, you can create a series with index values, and you can use any other, value. For example, we can use some letters. Okay, so let me call this as S2. The idea is I'm going to create a series, in this case, series with the index values. Earlier, we didn't specify, so it has taken as a numeric index. So if you use here PD series, of course, you can have a list of numbers. So let me use the same values, 4 and 5. Okay, so that's the first part of it. But let's define index. So index we can given like this. Let's say the first index is A, second one is B, then C, and then D. Now let's see what will happen. Let's print S2. And here is how the data series looks like, right? Earlier we have index value 0 to 3. Now we have A, B, C, D. So with that one, we have discussed how to create a series, right, with a index value. Right. Similar to that, you can look at the shape and then the index. I'm not going to spend time on that. Right. Next one that I would like to discuss it here is we can look at, for example, how we can create a data frame, right? So like in previous case, data frame can be used like in previously. For that, let me show you how we may use a library NumPy for this. So I'm going to discuss create data frame. Okay, so we need some values. So let's say I want to create some set of random numbers. If you remember from our previous discussion, creating random numbers can be done in NumPy random module. And there's a method called randn. And if you say 3 by 3, this will generate a 3 by 3 random array of values. So which we can use to create a data frame. So let me say I'm going to create a data frame df1. So this is the name given. And let's say we have to use pd.dataframe. Okay, and then we can enclose the random 3 by 3 matrix, so which will create a data frame. And of course, you can look at what data frame can consist of, and you should see something like this. And notice that your row and columns are numerically indexed. We have not defined any values. But using numerical index is useful, but when you have a large data, remembering what these numbers means is not very practical. So therefore, usually we prefer some labels. So let's update the code. We'll put up some labels for each of these columns. But right now, you can see the columns are indexed as 0, 1, 2, which is okay for a smaller set of values, but when you get large, right, managing will be a difficult. So the ideally what we need, let me copy paste this so I can save some time. Okay, so df1 data frame 3 by 3, right? And then what you could do is you can put a comma here, and like we did previously, we can say columns, right? Then I can have the labels. So A, B, and C. Right. Now let's look at same thing. When you run this, you will notice columns are numbered like this. Right. So in the next one, we can look at the same thing like in early, when you define the data frame and then you can define them as columns. There's another way that actually you can use it. You can use list method. Now, for example, same thing, I will rewrite. So maybe I will copy paste this one, copy. I'll take another window. So here, for example, I will say columns, I will put this. You can have a list and you can have ABC. The idea will be when you give a string like this, it will generate a same list of numbers and we will get the same outcome. Right. If you need to know more information about a particular data frame, so you can always use this code. For example, we can say print df1, the df1, yes, df1 dot info. Okay, you can so you can see it'll give you a detailed view of data frame 1. So it tells you about ranges, index, and then we have 3 data columns. We label them as ABC. Likewise, it will give you all the information. Right. The next one is you can individually count if you want. For example, we can say df1 dot count, which will give you this information. So what is the information? It will give you a number of times the values. You can simply count how many. In this case, we have 3 rows each, and you will see 3, 3, 3. Right. Now that we discuss about creating a Pandas data frame, so let's look at how you can view, right? to view this, I will create a little bit bigger code. So let me discuss viewing, view, and let me create two data frames, df2, sorry, df2, and we can say pd data frame, right? It should be pd dot, right? So the size of this, let me create some random, is a large number of rows. So for example, np dot random dot rand n, you can say, right, it should be like this. And then we can say columns. Then we can specify what to put it there. So let me say list ABC. And then display df2. Okay. Let me, it should be capital. Right, you should get something like this. Now just wait. We are not going to execute everything. So let's pause for the moment. And if you finish up to this, so this will give you 100 into 3. That means 100 records. You can notice that when you view, it will show you like the first 5 columns and the last 5 columns. This is known as a head and a tail. So you can just say head. So the next thing is viewing the code. Right now we have 100 records. So if you say df2.head, will list you the first 5 records. Yeah, just try df2 head. Similar to that, use df2 tail, which gives you the last 5 rows. Now let's say if you need like not just 5 is the default. Let's say you need 10 records, right? So simply you put a number. Right now, if you use df2.head, gives you the first 5 records. So if you say df2 head 10, which gives you the first 10 records. So in Pandas, you can see this is very easy compared to we have, having these methods will easier our, work with the data. Similar to that, instead of tail, just put tail and you can try. Right. Let's move to the next one. Okay. Now, let's create or convert data frames into numpys. This is possible. So how do you do that? Okay. For example, let me create data frame 3. So I'm going to say df3 as df2.head, right? So you know what will happen. Now you take the first 5 records of df2 and put it to df3. If you say df3 dot to underscore numpy, right, which will convert this data frame is to, right, to a numpy n dimensional array. You can check that. Right. So that's about the simple handling of data. Right. Now let's say you need some statistics. Now we have 100 rows in DF2. So let's look at the count. We can say, for example, DF2, we have 100 records, right? Let's use describe. So describe will give you the summary static in the sense that it tells us the count will be 100 for each of these columns, mean values, standard deviations, min and max, and also all the percentile values, which is helpful, especially when you work with the data. This is one of the commands we extensively use. We started using describe, will tell us exactly based on the data, gives a count, mean, standard deviation, minimum, and then also like percentile values and also the maximum. Right. Next, we can you get the transformation. So the right now we have 100 into 3. Let's make it 3 into 100. So you can say df2 dot capital T, right? Now if you do this, you will get 3 lines and then 100 columns. You can just go here, you can find, okay. Right. So that's the another operation that you can do. Okay, next one. Let's look at sorting. For example, let's use df2 dot sort index. And we can just look at ascending order. So we can say ascending. True, if you want to go from small to highest. So let's sort based on the index. That means we will say ascending false. What do you mean by ascending false? Now you should see we have 100 record as the first one, then 90, 97, 95. The last one will be the first record, right? How similar to that? That is ascending order about rows, right? Can we do the columns? Of course you can. Only thing is you have to change the axis. So let's look at how to do this. Right now we have a matrix with 3 values as A, B, 3, and then from 0 to 99. Okay, so now let's look at like this. Same thing we are going to do. Sort index. We have axis key to define along which direction. So the axis is 1 and then ascending. So if you do like that, just notice now, earlier we had ABC, now we have CBA. Right. Now this is something very straightforward. Now let's look at whether we can sort based on the particular column. Let's say we are going to rank all the data point based on the values of B in ascending order. So here is a command. We have data frame 2. df2 dot sort values by so you can see B is lowest to it goes to largest. Right, finish this when you so now we learn how to sort the value based on a particular column. We actually try to learn how to work with the data. So sometimes you do need operation like this, right? Okay, next one. So you can see the rankings, how, so the lowest value is the largest value, and index also you can identify from here, right? Okay, now sometimes we need, right? For example, this could be some accuracy values. We want to rank our method, like, okay, so ABC could be some machine learning algorithms or accuracies. And then we want to see the rankings of this. So there's a command we can use. It's called rank. So for example, df2.rank. So what happens now? Right? You will get something like this. So according to the values of A for the first one, it ranked number 54, B is 19, C is 61. So for example, we know 64, you have the lowest value. So that you can actually see. For example, 95, okay, lowest value is C. Right. So the ranking, you can see here, right? All the values are ranked based on the numerical value. I told you this is helpful when you're comparing, algorithms. Right. Let's move to another set. Now we discuss how to create them, how to select them. How to view them, right? So the next one is, let's look at how to select the data. Now, when you say selection, there are different, methods like at, index, I at, location-based ones, ILOC, and so on. So those are the things I'm going to discuss in this part. So let's start the very first one. So we are going to talk about selection. Selection. And this I'm going to use at .iat .loc .iloc. Okay. So for example, let's say I want to access columns. So we can say df2 dot with, let's say, the first column. So that is A, right? Which you will get something like this. This is the simplest way of selection. You can use a dot operator together with, you can have label value. Right. Now, same thing can be done in multiple ways. The same code, df2.a, can be written as this. So we can say df2, within double quotes, we can provide like this, which is another way to represent the same information. You are selecting the first column. Now, similar to that, let's say you want to select rows. Rows, we know it's numerical index. There are 4. you can just give a range. So for example, if you are going to select the first, let's say 3 rows, we can say df2, and we can say 0 to 3, 0, 1, 2, the first 3 rows of the data, right? So you can see something like this. Actually, you can, by putting, for example, start and stop is how you specify. You can get any number of data. For example, let's say df2, let's say from 50 to 56, 5 rows, right? You can go like this. Okay. Then let's say you don't need some of the rows. You can actually filter them. Right? So for example, I told you when you say df2, so you can see I'm actually going to select some of this. So for example, if I do not need the first row, you can simply put it like this, which you can get everything. Right. If you finish up with this, please raise your hands. So this is sometimes very useful operation. Let's say you need to ignore the first row. Usually you have labels. You can use this technique. It starts from the second row to until the last row. Okay. Next, let's take let's say only the first row of values. So there's a df2.loc0. In this way, we can say, right, only the first row value. You can get. Similar to that, you can use index value. Now remember, although we put 0 here, this is based on their label. We have not defined any labels here. For example, if you want to look at only the indexes, ideally you should use ILOC and you put 0, which you will get based on their index value. Now, if you want me to demonstrate this one, ideally I have to write another one. Let me put it in this way. So let's put like this. We can have, let's say, df4. I will create a data frame 4 using PD data frame, right? np.random.randn. Let's use 3 by 3, right? Now let me run this first. This is not the last one, df4. If you create something like this, we know it will numerical index both rows and the columns. Now let's put some columns. So let me use columns. Let's use list A, B, C. I think we have discussed this earlier. Now we have labeled all my columns. Now let's name rows as well. The rows usually we call index. Let's say list, I will say ABC. Now what this simple ABC means, you can see now, these are labels for rows, ABC simple. Columns, we have capital. Now, when you want to work with this, now use LOC, you have to provide the row label. So for example, so we can say df4, right, dot LOC, and let's put A. So which you can see, LOC is for that. Similar to that, df4 dot ILOC, it should be 0 because it's numerical index. So that's the difference between the LOC and ILOC. Okay, now we are going to discuss something else. Now, how do you select? Now, originally, let's say df2. df2. So in df2, we have how many rows? 100. And then we have 3 columns. Let's see, I need only the first 2 columns. So what you can do is you can use either LOC or ILOC, similar to the previous one. So let's put LOC. Now, when you say LOC, it's about labels, right? So if you are going to have rows and column both, you can say column to represent I need everything, all the rows. And let's say we need only A and B. Now you can see we are selecting based on the labels, all the rows and the columns A and B. Observe the outcome. Similar to that, you can use ILOC. But when you ILOC, remember, you can just use numerical index. So for example, if you need the same thing with ILOC, you have to say column, first 2 columns, right? It should work. But totally, it's numeric now. Yes, numerical values we have used. So you should be very comfortable with this way of handling data. Very important. So since we are specifying start and end, then you can decide whichever you want. So for example, now let's say I need the first two columns with row numbers 5 to 10. How do you type? So we have to say df2 dot ILOC. We have to have brackets, comma, separate them. We can have colons. So what I said was, I need the row number 5 to 10. So we will have start and then the end will be 11. Second one, let's say you need the first two rows. So 0 and 1, then you have to have 2 here. So if you run like this, you can see any part of the data now, you should be able to select. If you do know the ranges, then actually you can comma separate and you can have a list of numbers. Now let's say what I need is something like this. So df2 dot ILOC. First rows, right? So let me use row number 5, 10, and 15. 3 points. And then columns, let's say 0, 1, 2. So if you look at that now, you can see using ILOC, we were able to access row number 5, 10, 15. And you have made it into courses, that is 0 and 2. So when you say 0 and 2, 0 specify column A, 2 on the other hand is C. Finish? If you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. So the same thing can be used to access individual elements. Now let's say we have dft.head. We know head gives us the first 5 records, right? Now let's say I want to access, right, the first value in third row, right? Third row, the first value, 0.52, right? So if you want to get that, what we need to type is, I have to say df2.ILOC. Okay, third row, 0, 1, 2, first value. So if you do like that, according to my one, you can see 0.523959 is here. But there's another method where we can use to access item in fast. Make a note of this one. If you want to do the same thing, this is the best way. We can say df2 dot I at 2, 0. Right. So now we discuss how to create series and data frames, how to view, how to change. So a few more things. First one, let's say I need only the positive values in column A. So what are the values we have? So df2, let's look at the values. So positive values, if you look at column A, according to this, we have 2 and 4, right? Others we have negative values. So let's ask only retain positive values of A. Now to do this, we have to get something like this. We have to get df2 A. Okay, you can put it like this. If you do like this, you know, it gives you the values in A. And what we are interested in is the values that are positive, greater than 0. If you do like that, this is the outcome, right? First 2 rows, negative. Third one, positive, right? So let's use this within the data frame. So I can say df2. You can put it like this. If you do like this, you will notice our first positive value start with 2, then 4, then 5. It goes on like this. So let's say you want to check every value, whether it's positive. So we can say df2 greater than 0. Now you can see how true positive works. So to filter this one, we'll apply again. And if you run it, you will get something like this. So you can see here, we check whether the individual value is greater than 0. If that is the case, we output that. Okay, next one, let's work on some missing values. So I'm going to get this one. And I'm going to say this is df3. Let's look at head. So now let's drop some unwanted characters because they are indeed negative. And here also we So let's say we have missing values here and there. Let's drop everything. So what we can do, df5. Okay, next remove this. So we have df3. Let's drop them. We have to specify how. I'll put the value any. So you can see we have very few points without any missing values. So let's say that this is not what we need. Instead of dropping them, let's look at how to get back. So to do that, we have to say df3 dot fill na. We say value equals 0. Now what happened? Where in early exercise, when we have empty, we discuss what values to select. Okay. You can use any other value as well, depending on your requirement. Right. Next one, let's look at some operations. So we can say we can find average value. So in this one, what you need is find the numerical or mean value using the commands. Similar to that, medium. So we can say df2 dot median. Okay, basic is statistics we have covered. Now let's look at briefly how to make plotters or plotting diagram. So now let's take a code window. I put a plotting. So you can see graphically we have plotted these values. Right. The next one, let's look at how we can read from external sources. So Pandas data frames are very useful for data sources. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a small file where we need this file for some other documents as well. So I'm going to get the notepad, which I will create a small CSV file. Start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a very small CSV file. So in this CSV file, I'm going to use a small data set, which we want our machine learning program. So maybe you need exact data points later on as well. So you better create with me so that you also have the same file with you. Right. So the data set is about like playing some particular game based on some weather data. So the first attribute is called outlook. Second one is called temperature. Third one called humidity. Fourth one called windy. The last one is about play attribute. So we have values. We have sunny, hot, high. So these are corresponding values. False, and you don't play the game. Similar to that, sunny, hot, high, true, and no. Then overcast, hot, high, false, and yes. Then rainy, mild, high, false, again yes, rainy, cool, normal, false, again yes, rainy, cool, normal, true, and no, overcast, cool, normal, true, and yes, then sunny, mild, high, false, and yes, then sunny, cool, normal, false, and then yes. Okay, this should be after overcast. Okay, there's a small error. So overcast, cool, normal, true, and yes, that is okay. Sunny, mild, high, false, and they should be no. Then sunny, cool, normal, false, yes. Right, rainy, mild, normal, false, then yes. Again, sunny, mild, normal, true, yes, overcast, mild, high, true, and yes, overcast, hot, normal, false, yes, rainy, mild, high, true, and no. I'll copy paste for this so that you don't have to type everything from the beginning. So I put it in the chat, right? You can get it from there. Right, now I'm going to save this file as a weather dataset. So let me save this, save as. And when you save it, make sure that you use all files, and let's put in the desktop. Let me save it as weather.csv. Okay, now I have saved as a weather.csv file. Okay, now let me show you how you are going to use it. Right. Now that you have created this CSV file in Pandas, there's a method called read CSV. So idea is you have to have that file somewhere. So maybe I'm going to get it here. So when you click this fold icon, you can see the location we have everything. So maybe we can upload. So I'm going to upload the file from the desktop, our weather CSV, right? Okay. So remember that whatever we uploaded here will be temporary. So you can now see weather CSV file here, right? So now I can call. So let me create a data frame. Let's say weather. I'm going to say data frame weather pd dot read underscore CSV, and I will say weather dot CSV. Remember to import pandas as PD. Right now, let me show you. Right now, this is okay. Let's display df weather. I'm going to run. So if I done this correctly, you can notice that right now you can see the data set is loaded as a data frame, which is easy. And now you can manipulate the things we have discussed earlier can also be used here as well. So the next one is, let's look at only the check based on particular weather outcome. Now let's say I want to select rows based on some, okay, let's say I want to select rows with outlook equals sunny, right? If you remember from our previous discussion, we can use the data frame and you can get only the outlook like this, right? I hope you remember that. If you use that, it will give you only that column. And what we expect, the value is should be sunny, right? So we'll get true only for sunny columns. But then again, if you use df weather and we enclose this one, what happens? We get only the rows which satisfy this requirement, which is the point here. So we have 5 sunny Outlook sunny cases, right? So let me put this as df5, and let's save it as a CSV file. So what you need to do is df5 to CSV, and let's name it as weather underscore updated dot CSV. So if you save this run, what happens? It will filter out your data based on Outlook Sunny, and it will save it back here. So you can see weather updated CSV, where you can click these 3 dots and you can download. Okay. So this is one way you can work on with the data. But let's say you want to save everything in Google Drive. This is also possible. For example, I'm going to my Drive. So if you go to Drive, usually you should find there's a folder where you have all the notebooks. Right now I'm inside the My Drive. If you go to My Drive, you can find different folders. And under that, usually you should find there's a folder called Collab Notebooks. This is the place where all our notebooks are saved usually. So I can create a folder called data sets. So under this, let me create a folder called data sets. And inside the data set, you can upload the file that we have just created. That is weather CSV, right? Just upload it here. You can drag and drop. Now, if you do this in your Drive, let me explain how you can connect the code to Drive. The first step is you need to mount the Drive. Mount Google Drive. So to mount the Google Drive, usually we can say from google.colab, we can say import drive, and then we can say drive.mount. We say content/G drive. Right. So if you do that, and if you click run, now this is going to be connected. It'll ask connect to Google Drive. So I'm going to select my account, which now account is connected to Google Colab. So once I do this, what I could do is I can get anything within the drive and read it out from there. So this is how usually I save my data for the easiness instead of saving it in my local machine. So once this part is done, what you need to do is we can just use that. So for example, now let's see whether I have the file within the folder. So you can use ls with exclamation mark. You can go to content. So this is the drive. If you remember, content and G drive is the one we have mounted. And usually you should see G drive here. So let me put G drive here. And if you run it this time, right? G drive, now you can find my drive. So let me put my drive. So under the my drive, you can find Colab notebooks. So we can use Colab notebooks. And if you go to Colab notebooks, okay, so let me use quotes like this because you have a space here. If you go to Colab notebooks, you can see a lot of Colab notebooks. Under that, I'm going to have data sets. So under the data sets, you should see there should be, okay, of course, we have weather CSV. So we have the weather data sets. Now, how do you access this? Okay, now that we know I have uploaded the data as with the CSV, what I could do is I can say import pandas as PD. Then I can say data frame 6 equals pd.read underscore CSV, same method. But this time, I'm going to access it from my Google Drive. So I'm going to copy this whole path here, right? And then I will say weather.csv. So this is the file I have, df6. So let me run whether this is successful. Okay. So you can see now I'm accessing data now from my Google Drive. Okay. With this one, I'm going to wind up for today's session. What we did, actually, we have discussed the basics of pandas. We discussed how to create a pandas series and data frames, viewing it, manipulating it, change the values, handling missing values, selection of columns, and finally, even we discussed how to create data frames using CSV files, and finally, how do you access your files within Google Drive. So with that, we conclude our discussion on pandas. What I need you to do is you do practice this one because you need one once we start the machine learning part, right? So until then, we'll start databases from next week onwards. So having said that, let's finish for today if you do not have any other questions.